With Calix, we got a great view into how service delivery and management sets the stage for, your efficient, actual service delivery. But how can you bring meaningful optimization to the customer acquisition steps? Well, Actifai really picks up the story there, helping ISPs guide customers to the right service at the right time. We're really excited to have Josh from Actifai join us and shed some more light on the topic. Josh, how's it going?
It's going well, Rick. Good to see you.
Likewise. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Hour number 3. I'm really excited to share this with folks. Great collection of information and fantastic partners so far. And we are proud to be a Sonar partner ourselves. As Rick graciously set up, we, Actifai, we are an AI sales software platform. We are specifically designed for broadband providers. We were built in partnership with a broadband provider back in late 2019. And today we target the point of sale, whether that's online, over the phone with a CSR, door to door. That is where our software is deployed by our broadband partners. And we'll get into it in just a moment. But the magic is in the AI and how that optimizes the sales process, drastically increases revenue and subscriber growth for providers. And extra magic is in the native integration with Sonar, which we're really excited to have completed and to be offering to Sonar customers today, making it even easier for them to leverage our technology. So that's the overview. Let's get into it real quick here. Okay. So just kind of set the scene, better explain what we're doing and why we exist at all in the first place. Like I said, back in 2019, we partnered with a broadband provider. One of our investors, because we were an AI technology studio, we had an investor that was also an investor in a broadband provider that said, hey, the two of you need to get together. I think you could build something for them that could be helpful. So when we did, we identified a particular area together where AI could really drive the greatest benefit. And that area is this. The grand majority of the lifetime value that broadband providers generate from their subscribers, their customers, is set when they first sign up a new customer. As we all know, lots of effort goes into upselling, upgrading existing customers, but it can be very difficult. Although it's successful sometimes. Ultimately, many customers stay with the package they buy originally, and very few see that price go up over time. Most folks want to see it stay the same, or some want discounts over time to see it go down, which means that interaction that you have, that buying experience that you provide your customer, no matter what the channel is extremely important. And what you say and what you show, just kind of the overall general how the experience goes, that heavily impacts whether or not you're going to convert that customer in the first place at all. So whether or not you win them. With all the money that goes into marketing, and just finished a new build, and we've got yard signs out in the street, and we've got billboards, and we're sponsoring community events, we're running Facebook ads, whatever it may be. When you get that customer into your sales channel, you might not convert them at all. And so it becomes very important to optimize how that actual interaction goes beyond just the ARPU that you'll generate and the customer experience you set themselves up for, but for whether or not you win them at all in the first place. So there's a sales conversion. Of course, there's the ARPU. We'll get into kind of why there's frequently a mismatch in the sales interaction with customers today of buying unoptimized services for them specifically, which leaves ARPU on the table. And then lastly, how that initial sales interaction goes even impacts your retention of that customer. If they buy the right thing and they understand what they got, and they're kind of bought into why they got it, that actually increases how long they'll stick around and how happy they'll be with your services. On the other hand, if they get the wrong thing and they kind of misunderstand what it is that they have, they're more likely to churn. So we identified this area as high importance, which is that initial sales interaction with a potential subscriber. And we identified it as a great opportunity for AI because really AI drives significant value when you have a situation that meets a couple of criteria, which is one, you need to have a decision or a process that happens repeatedly, very often, daily if possible. And a daily thing that happens is these sales interactions with your customers, what your CSRs are saying on the phone or what your potential customer is doing online when they're trying to buy. So that's repeated daily. Two, it's obviously has heavy revenue impact, which is what we just covered above. And then three, it's a process or a system that is today generally left to human discretion, meaning what a CSR says to someone, although we have scripting and things of that nature, it's going to vary from person to person, skill level, interaction. And the same thing with the online side of buying, which is a subscriber in a self-serve environment. They what they buy, what they look at, what decisions they make, that's entirely left up to them today. So it's this perfect sweet spot for AI, high revenue impact, a repeated decision, and one that's completely left to humans today. So what is this, like, what's really the problem then? What does it look like for consumers? This is a bit tongue-in-cheek, but this is kind of an easy way to understand the problem, looking at it through the lens of an online checkout flow. I always say as a marketer myself, that I feel for the copywriters on the broadband provider side that have to try to do the best they can, especially in the self-serve environment, to explain to people the differences between products. It's more than just speed, bandwidth and ping and Wi-Fi extenders and all the different bundles. But if you think about it just from a speed perspective as well, the average consumer really struggles with, or it doesn't truly understand, most typically, the difference between something like 400 megs, 800 megs, a gig, 2 gigs, etc. So the copy, oftentimes the best we can do is try to say what the benefits are, but the distinction between them is difficult to describe as well without using negatives. So the tongue-in-cheek example is 400 megs, great for gaming. 800, really great for gaming. What do I say for faster than that? A gig, really, really great for gaming. Ultimately, it makes it difficult for the consumer to figure out the best thing for them, particularly in a self-service environment, but also on the phone. On the other hand, for broadband providers, trying to do something better than that, trying to give the customer the best experience they can, the challenge has long been this. One, you can approach it by trying to show the customer everything they have available to them, all the different options, trying to add lots of information to bridge that understanding barrier, putting it all out there to help guide them to the right thing. The challenge there is that this is heavily backed by data. The more complex your checkout, the longer it takes, the more that's on screen, the more options, the more buttons, etc. The worse your checkout is going to perform. It becomes overcomplicated. And there really is something that we call a paradox of choice, where when you put too many things in front of the consumer, more often than not, it kind of frees up. And what ends up happening in this situation is consumers tend to put blinders on and start to make decisions based on the things that they understand, like price, for example. Show me the cheapest option. Where is that one? Oh, there's add-ons. No, thank you. How do I get past them? I'm just going to get internet and get the heck out of here. So suboptimal. The other approach that broadband providers have taken for the past many, many years is, instead of that model, you say, okay, well, let me direct the customer through to talk to a person, and maybe we can give them a better experience. Maybe we just can't handle, giving them a good experience online. So let's kind of punt it, more or less, where the checkout option is, give us your name, your email, maybe your number, and maybe you can kind of pre-select the type of thing you might be interested, or leave us a comment, and then we'll get back in touch with you. So, the obvious downside of this is consumers want to be able to buy online, and you're introducing friction with this approach in between, in the purchasing decision. So a large amount of potential customers are lost with this approach that want to, for example, midnight, go on a broadband provider's website. Maybe they got an ad while they were on social media and they clicked it and they said, yep, time for me to sign up for the service, but then they can't. So that's what it's traditionally been, kind of more or less those two options and flavors of them. But I pose the question, what might your sales experience look like, whether that was online or whether it's over the phone or door to door, if you could know these types of things? the example given, I'll read them but explain. What if you knew? Let's use the phone example instead of the website example now. What if your CSR knew right when a person called in and they typed in their address to check serviceability, that customer owned a multi-million-dollar home and there were 8+ bedrooms in it? Or on another hand, what if you knew it was a family of 5, that had teenagers in the home and those teenagers were gamers? Or how about you knew the customer worked from home, they were on a fixed income, but since they worked from home, they needed the best video conferencing they could get. These types of examples are context that might impact the type of offer that you recommend to a customer, what you put in front of them. The other 2 examples, which are illustrative, but also in reality, you can know these things. The other 2 examples impact how you might present an offer or options to customers. So what if you knew the individual lived in a neighborhood where 70% of their neighbors had all bought 500 megs or faster recently? Might that impact how you present to them a 500 meg package or faster? Or let's say you knew that at 500 megs versus one of your competitors, you could save that customer $120 a year. But if you were comparing your gig versus a competitor, you were disadvantaged by around $200 in a year. Might that change how you, again, present your offers to consumers? Well, it turns out you can know all these things and actually so much more instantly in any point of sale. And that's kind of the basis, the beginning point of what we do. So just to explain, before we take a look at this, the way that it works, the way that Actifai works, regardless of channel, is when a consumer starts a purchase. Let's use the website example again. And they say, I want to buy, and they click to enter their address. That's where Actifai begins. First, we'll go out and do the serviceability part, which we'll come back to. But from that point of the consumer giving us their address, we go and collect almost 1,500 data points about that individual customer. So what does that mean? It's things like demographics, how big is their family, how many people live in the home, obviously, what's the education level of the person that we're speaking to, or what's the potential job, what's the estimated income, what's the neighborhood look like, how long have they been living in the home, things of that nature. Then there's household information, how big's the house, how many rooms, what's the neighborhood, what's the average home value in the neighborhood. There's competitive information that we'll grab. Who else can service this customer? What are their speeds? What are their bundles? What are their pricing, et cetera? And then lastly, behavioral, which we append, where we'll find out about the consumer, things like, do you work from home? Or are there any gamers in the house? So we get that whole kind of background information on the customer in real time, instantly. And then we run it through a model, this is kind of where the magic begins. It was started being built all the way back in 2019, and is a driver for the value that we provide broadband providers today, where we've created a model that looks at every single sales interaction that we have powered, now over 2.5 million and 20,000, growing by 20,000 a week. And that number is ever growing. What do I mean by look at it? Basically, we take the sales interaction, we de-identify the information, and we strip it down to basically this: a background consumer profile based on kind of those data points. Then what offer was primarily recommended to them, what things were said to them about that offer, and then what did the customer ultimately buy? And by doing that over and over and over again, we were able to create a model that has gotten very good at predicting what the best match is for a customer that you're talking to. And what do I mean by that? Well, it allows the AI built into the software to then identify in that moment, at that time, for that customer, what is the offer recommendation, whole package, that should be put together and put in front of the customer as the top priority. Really, what should be the recommendation of what they buy. That allows you to dodge the old system of showing the customer everything that's possibly available, which leads to bad outcomes. And of course, it also overcomes some of the approach of, hey, you're going to have to call us to be able to do this sale. So we put a recommendation in front of the customer in real time, and then we give them specific, again, AI optimized selling points that are specific to that consumer that are going to help them understand why the recommendation's been made and help kind of influence their purchase decision. Doing it that way has a lot of benefits, but we'll come back to that. So that's a concept of how Actifai works, and what we're doing today for Sonar customers, for our broadband provider partners, is we're deploying that solution both in a call center, so to speak, for your CSR agents. And also on the website side, where it's the checkout flow, it's the microsite buy flow for consumers to be able to go on the broadband provider's website and sign up on their own. Both of these solutions now natively integrated with Sonar, and we'll talk about what that means and why it's such a big benefit for Sonar providers today. But before we do that, just to give you a quick visual on really what it is we're talking about using the online, the e-commerce checkout flow as an example. I just wanted to show you kind of what it looks like without any broadband provider branding. We just use Actifai branding and the connection points with Sonar and the like. So imagine a customer is on your website and they click that, they want to sign up or they want to check availability and they want to buy a package, whatever it may be. They would then enter the checkout flow, which is powered by Actifai. It's a microsite. We match it to a broadband provider's branding to the consumer. It doesn't look like they've gone somewhere separate. It's just like they've entered into a checkout flow. So right out of the gate, your maps, your serviceable address information, Sonar, that syncs through to Actifai. And that's the foundation of us being able to do the serviceability check. But we actually enhance it a step further, where things like spell checking, basic error correction, we're going to do that all in real time. If somebody types in something like South Main Street instead of Main Street South, the AI model that we made is able to understand what that is. So you don't run into turning someone away for no real reason. We also are going to be able to append that address information that you have in Sonar to do predictive serviceability. Example being, you have 12 Main Street and 16 Main Street in your serviceable addresses, homes pass file, and then 14 King Street shows up and is looking to buy from you. We're able to, via a series of different calculations, figure out with high reliability whether or not you're able to serve that address, even if you don't have it in your catalog. The whole idea is to pass as many people as possible through the checkout process and to turn as few people away as possible. So that's where we're going to do this kind of serviceability check. Beyond that, the baseline things that you need to have. Let's say we find that the address is not serviceable, it's not in Sonar, and the predictive model is not saying, okay, we don't have it, but it is serviceable. So it's just straight up not serviceable. Well, no problem. We will give the customer the ability to do some error correction. Did they really make a manual mistake where, oops, I actually meant another address or I meant a different location? They can fix that right here. However, if there was no mistake made, then we give them the simple option as well to say, hey, let me know, give me a notification when you're coming to my area, or keep me up to date if there's going to be a build here. And this is what that would look like. Let's say, again, you have an address in Sonar and it's marked that you are going to be building there. It's prioritized that you're eventually going to get to it. We know that. Then we can tell a consumer, hey, it's not available today, but collect that information and get them to opt in so that we can give them those notifications, pass that information back into Sonar. Or on the other hand, if the address is serviceable and we know it, this is an optional view that you can have where it gives kind of a visual aid, a map for the consumer to feel more confident that, yep, this is indeed my address. This is, again, optional. It's something that particularly rural areas will like to have, but you don't need it. Point being, when we find out it's a serviceable address, or, for example, it's a serviceable address, but we, again, get from Sonar automatically, hey, this is an existing customer, we're able to see that live in real time and take the customer through the appropriate flow. So let's just say I click this button here. It's somebody that's moving to this serviceable address. Then what happens? Well, again, pre-synced with Sonar, we know your product catalog, everything that your services, you have hardware that's attached with that. It's all passed automatically between Sonar and Actifai. So we take a pretty unique approach. Instead of, after confirming serviceability, taking the customer to a page where here's the whole menu of everything we have to offer, we instead are going to ask the customer a couple of questions about themselves. What do we do this for? Well, one, prevents the whole menu option, which we've already talked about. It decreases ARPU and conversion, but it also creates this environment where the consumer is ready to receive a recommendation. You're getting their buy-in. they're talking about something that they know instead of trying to figure out things they don't know. I know that I work from home. I'm not necessarily sure whether or not I need a gig or 2 gigs. So when you get them involved in this process of figuring out what's best for them, it sets them up of a mindset where this is collaborative. I'm going to receive a recommendation, and it helps create the environment where you're earning their buy-in to whatever it is that they're going to purchase after this. Instead of having those folks focus on price, now we're thinking about value and relative benefit to me. So we ask them a couple of questions, some of which we actually already know about a customer, but you'll see why we ask them it anyway on the next screen. Once they click through, they've answered a couple of short questions. What we're going to do is we're going to immediately give the customer a single recommended offer. What does this mean? Out of your catalog of all possible packages, bundles, all that jazz, which again is synced up with Sonar, we're going to identify the one that we think is the best match for that customer. The AI in the background has done the thinking for us, for the consumer, to say, all right, if we start them with this package, that's going to end up putting them in a place where they land on the one that's best for them. What I mean by that, the AI might have figured out here, not that this individual definitely should get the blazing 1 gigabit speed, but that by starting here, explaining this value, they're going to land on the best package for them. Maybe that is the 1 gig, or maybe they move down to 800. But it's kind of figured out, as opposed to if you did open-ended choice, where they may have ended up with, let's say, 100 megs, that this is the better approach to get them where they need to be. So we give them a recommendation. Immediately, we put it all together on the right-hand side because pricing transparency is a big thing for successful checkouts. So this is all updated live and in real time, but it's immediately there for the consumer to see. We give these custom, again, AI-selected selling points where we're able to tell the consumer better than just, hey, a gig is really good for gaming. We know what's going to impact the consumer, so we're able to be specific. Let's say we knew that this customer worked from home and that was very important to them. We're able to tell them something like, when you work from home, usually high speeds are important for video conferencing. And in fact, 83% of your neighbors that work from home have bought a gig or faster from us in the past year. So we think it's a really good option for you. Doing it this way boosts the ARPU, boosts the conversion, helps get that buy-in. The customer can, of course, make adjustments to this. We have a really clean and nice UI that's built in so that they can make any changes. And before we kind of see what that looks like, it's little things that matter in optimizing a checkout flow, even beyond all the benefits of AI. It's the little things like having consistent, clean, and obvious navigation that the consumer is going to have all throughout this flow. So I'm going to click next step. And this is a screen where, had I had clicked to change the plan, maybe I didn't want that gig, then it's going to look like this. It's going to show me all of the available speeds that I can change to. And like I said, it's the little things that make all the difference. For example, what we do here is we show them the difference between moving in between different speeds. So they went from 1 gig to 400, but they see that 600 additional megs is only costing them $10. They only save $10 going down to 400. Little things like that, again, help maximize the ARPU in your checkout flow. In addition to that, the AI isn't just picking the speed, it's picking the entire collection of services that it believes are the best match to the consumer. So in this case, it identified that Wi-Fi extenders were going to be important to that consumer. There are lots of reasons why it might know that. I'll give one example. As a broadband provider we worked with, said that in their community, if a home was built before, I think in 1978, regulations were different and walls were extra thick. So all the customers they had that had homes that matched that criteria, they would frequently have Wi-Fi problems around the house, and they had high churn because they weren't getting Wi-Fi extenders into those homes out of the gate and having trouble upselling them. So that's one of the reasons that we can figure out add-ons, additional services are relevant to a consumer. But in this example, the original recommendation was a gig with these Wi-Fi extenders built in. The consumer can adjust that right here very easily if they want, or if they're making changes and kind of playing around, they can also very easily go right back to that original recommendation if they'd like to do that. So again, just a really quick note, we've got the internet, kind of handled above, but you see the pricing, the catalog exchange between Sonar and Actifai goes beyond just your internet speeds. It includes anything else that you have, your video, your voice options, the hardware that you might sell, all the bundles you have, relevant promotions if they're going on in a geography and the like. So for this consumer, an identified phone as well is a good match for them. Gives the customer the option to add video cleanly without really adding much distraction to the checkout flow, but it also applies a lot of best practices. For example, how do you improve selling add-ons, getting additional revenue in your checkout flow? Well, what data shows is that it's much easier to upsell someone, upgrade them, than it is to cross-sell. So we make it really simple and logical places to say, hey, this is where we got you, but you can go to that next option with a button click here. It kind of creates that curiosity of, well, let me see what that upgrade is without creating an interruption. Again, all the adjustments are available in here for the consumer, but we pre-select it and keep it clean and simple to maximize the outcome. And of course, you got broadband labels built in as well. Last things to know, kind of how it works with Sonar. What we'll do, well, when an order is committed, again, because you want to be able to pass as many customers through the process and sign them up as frequently as possible without creating friction or punting the decision to later, requiring an additional step like a callback. We'll take the consumer information right here, and then we'll tie that back to the customer's contact card in Sonar, create the inbound lead account. If you do process consumers by a separate payment system, or you do want to do a callback, now that's kind of in there in Sonar. Or we can natively, again, use Sonar Pay if that's something that you have, get the customer's information, take the payment, store the card, pass it back to Sonar so that it can be used again in the future. But all of this information from the order automatically exchanged back to Sonar. Same thing with scheduling. If a provider uses Sonar for the technician scheduling, then we can do that live lookup for available technician capacity, all based kind of on geofence affiliation in Sonar. And then we'll give the consumer the overview of slots that they can pick. And then once they've picked one, the consumer that is, then we're able to kind of pass back to Sonar the information for job scheduling and assigning it to a appropriate field service rep. So that's the idea. Or again, you don't have to do any of this. It's customizable for what people need. If you don't do scheduling in that way, there's an option right here. We can just say, hey, this is going to be a callback. But the bright side is you already won the customer order prior to this. You're not creating barriers for why you can't sign up a customer then and there. What does this look like in the wild? This is one of our customers' websites, their native website. This is an example of one of the buttons that they have, I believe, on their internet page. They show some of their offers. This sign up button right here, that leads you right into, again, the checkout flow, which here it is, kind of matched to their branding. So that's the idea. We do this in the call center, but I'm not going to talk about that. It's very much the same idea. We're going to walk a CSR through the buying process, giving them the recommendation, giving them the background data, and exchanging all that information with Sonar. This concept, this approach has been a big deal for the broadband providers that we work with now over the past many years, 25 plus providers all across the country, Canada, and now internationally. We're seeing up to 30% sales conversion lift. The average is usually double digits, somewhere in that 10-15 range. ARPU increases as high as 26. Those higher end numbers are more common for medium, small ISPs. And we have a couple of large customers that they've seen 5-6% ARPU lift. That's worth millions of dollars to them. We have other customers, like the one I just showed a second ago, Light Curve up in Washington, where their ARPU lift was 26% by deploying the e-commerce checkout flow for their online sales. And one of the things I love the most is that even though customers are paying you more with the ARPU increase, they're also sticking around longer. And that ties into the idea what the AI is actually doing, identifying what is the best match for the consumer. So they're paying more, they're buying from you more often, and they're sticking around longer, 6 to 11% we've seen on average. So to close, what's the benefit here really to Sonar customers? Basically, we did the hard work. Actifai and Sonar are pre-integrated now. So what does that native integration mean? It means you can get started with something like this extremely quickly, whether or not that's e-com or the CSR tool, both, or door-to-door. You can be up and running in 4 to 6 weeks. The things that we need to launch with a provider are your homes pass file, your serviceability information, the fixed wireless side, where are your towers, et cetera. and we need your offer catalogs. What are your products and services? Those things are already automatically exchanged now between us and Sonar. So no work to be done manually by providers. Lastly, there's no change to the way that you do things. So you want to change promotions, you're changing bundles, you're changing pricing, you're updating your serviceability, all that jazz. You're going to do it the same way you always have in Sonar, and that's automatically going to be reflected through Actifai. You can take payments at the point of sale, particularly with Sonar Pay, and you even get the additional benefits of all of the analytics that we collect: who dropped off and when, and how far did they get, and what was recommended, where did they come from, what were the demographics, etc. All that can be exchanged with Sonar so that you have it in your reporting dashboards within Sonar as you're analyzing what your sales performance is. So that's the story. That's what we're doing with Sonar today. Really excited to share it with you, and we'd love to roll this out for you, help you with your sales. Happy to answer any questions, but that's the whole story.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. Really appreciate you walking us through, like you said, why does Actifai exist? What is the value that you bring, and what are real customers seeing? And I think you did a great job of showcasing that, as well as tying a bow on it and showing what our integration looks like. Now, this is a case where we've been working very closely. This is an external integration to Sonar, but Sonar has been working hand in hand with the development team at Actifai. And again, this is another one of these cases where this isn't the end. This is the beginning. I don't want to put my foot in my mouth by saying anything in particular, but we have continued the discussion after getting this initial integration out on other additional opportunities of value that can continue to be pulled into this. And obviously we will keep everyone up to date as time goes on. Unfortunately, I see there are a couple of questions in the chat. Maybe Josh, if you can stick around and just answer them through text. We are running long, and I want to give everyone a quick opportunity for a bio break or to refresh your coffee before we come back at 2:45 Eastern. So we're going to jump to that quick break, and I will see you then. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Josh.